Voltage series feedback, also called series shunt feedback, results in A. Increase in both IP and OP impedances. B. Decrease in both IP and OP impedances. C. Increase in IP impedance and decrease in OP impedance. D. Decrease in IP impedance and increase in OP impedance. The correct answer is increase in IP impedance and decrease in OP impedance. How many free electrons does a p-type semiconductor has? A. Only those produced by thermal energy. B. Only those produced by doping. C. Those produced by doping as well as thermal energy. D. Any of the above. The correct answer is only those produced by thermal energy. Which of the following has highest resistivity? A. Mica. B. Paraffin wax. C. Air. D. Mineral oil. The correct answer is air. The sensitivity of human eyes is maximum at A. White portion of spectrum. B. Green portion of spectrum. C. Red portion of spectrum. D. Violet portion of spectrum. The correct answer is green portion of spectrum. In a bipolar transistor, the base collector junction has A. Forward bias. B. Reverse bias. C. Zero bias. D. Zero or forward bias. The correct answer is reverse bias. An intrinsic silicon sample has 1 million free electrons at room temperature. As the temperature is increased, the number of free electrons increases. B. The number of free electrons increases but the number of holes decreases. C. The number of free electrons and holes increase by the same amount. D. The number of free electrons and holes increase but not by the same amount. The correct answer is the number of free electrons and holes increase by the same amount. What is the necessary AC input power from the transformer secondary used in a half-wave rectifier to deliver 500 watts of DC power to the load? A. 1232 watts. B. 848 watts. C. 616 watts. D. 308 watts. The correct answer is 1232 watts. In a semiconductor diode, the barrier offers opposition to A. Holes in P region only. B. Free electrons in N region only. C. Majority carriers in both regions. D. Majority as well as minority carriers in both regions. The correct answer is majority carriers in both regions. In a half-wave rectifier, the load current flows A. Only for the positive half cycle of the input signal. B. Only for the negative half cycle of the input signal. C. For full cycle. D. For less than fourth cycle. The correct answer is only for the positive half cycle of the input signal. For a NPN bipolar transistor, what is the main stream of current in the base region? A. Drift of holes. B. Diffusion of holes. C. Drift of electrons. D. Diffusion of electrons. The correct answer is diffusion of holes. In monolithic ICs, all the components are fabricated by A. Diffusion process. B. Oxidation. C. Evaporation. D. None. The correct answer is diffusion process. Which one of the following is not a characteristic of a ferroelectric material? A. High dielectric constant. B. No hysteresis. C. Ferroelectric characteristic only above the Curie point. D. Electric dipole moment. The correct answer is ferroelectric characteristic only above the Curie point. In case of photoconductor for germanium, when forbidden energy gap is 0.72 eV, the critical wavelength for intrinsic excitation will be A. 1.43 m. B. 1.43 mm. C 1.73 mm, D 1.73 x 1012 m. The correct answer is 1.73 mm. In the sale of diamonds, the unit of weight is carat. 1 carat is equal to A 100 milligrams, B 150 milligrams, C 200 milligrams, D 500 milligrams. The correct answer is 200 milligrams. R.M.S value of the waveform shown will be A 3.53 V, B 1 V, C 7.07 V, D 8.56 V. The correct answer is 7.07 V. The effect of current shunt feedback in an amplifier is to A. Increase the IP resistance and decrease the OP resistance. B. Increase both IP and OP resistance. C. Decrease both IP and OP resistance. D. Decrease the IP resistance and increase OP resistance. The correct answer is decrease the IP resistance and increase OP resistance. Permalloy is A variety of stainless steel, B. A polymer, C. A non-ferrous alloy used in aircraft industry, D. A nickel and iron alloy having high permeability. The correct answer is a nickel and iron alloy having high permeability. Which of the following could be the maximum current rating of junction diode by 126? A 1A, B 10A, C 20A, D 100A. The correct answer is 1A. Each cell of a static random access memory contains A 6 MOS transistor, B 4 MOS transistor 2 capacitor, C 2 MOS transistor 4 capacitor, D 1 MOS transistor and 1 capacitor. The correct answer is 6 MOS transistor. An electron in the conduction band A has higher energy than the electron in the valence band. B has lower energy than the electron in the valence band. C loses its charge easily. D jumps to the top of the crystal. The correct answer is has higher energy than the electron in the valence band. The magnetization M of a superconductor in a field of H is A. Extremely small, B. H, C 1, D 0. The correct answer is H. The number of free electrons in acceptor atom is A 1, B 2, C 3, D 4. The correct answer is 3. Maximum rectification efficiency for a half-wave rectifier is A 100, B 88, C 50, D 40.6. The correct answer is 40.6. For a semiconductor, the conductivity is a function of the products of the number of charge carriers and their mobilites. As a result, if the temperature of a slab of intrinsic silicon increases, how does its conductivity vary? A. Decreases, B. Increases, C. Remains unaffected, D. Increases or decreases depending upon the rise in temperature. The correct answer is increases. In a junction transistor, the collector cut-off current ICBO reduces considerably by doping the A. emitter with high level of impurity, B. emitter with low level of impurity, C. collector with high level of impurity, D. collector with low level of impurity. The correct answer is emitter with high level of impurity. A Schottky diode clamp is used along with a switching BJT for A. reducing the power, B. reducing the switching time dissipation, C. increasing the value of, D. reducing the base current. The correct answer is reducing the switching time dissipation. The first dominant pole encountered in the frequency response of a compensated op amp is approximately at A. 5 Hz, B. 10 kHz, C 1 MHz, D 100 MHz. The correct answer is 5 Hz. The kinetic energy of free electrons in a metal is where K is de Broglie wave number of the electrons. A, B, C K, D K2. The correct answer is intrinsic concentration of charge carriers in a semiconductor varies as AT, BT2, CT3, DT2. The correct answer is T3. The dynamic resistance of a forward-biased PN diode. A varies inversely with current. B varies directly with current. C is constant. D is either constant or varies directly with current. The correct answer is varies inversely with current. A thermistor is A thermocouple, B thermometer, C miniature resistance, D heat-sensitive explosive. The correct answer is miniature resistance. When diodes are connected in series to increase voltage rating, the peak inverse voltage per junction A should not exceed half the breakdown voltage. B should not exceed the breakdown voltage. C should not exceed 1/3 the breakdown voltage. D may be equal to or less than breakdown voltage. The correct answer is should not exceed 1/3 the breakdown voltage. Hall effect is observed in a specimen when it is carrying current and is placed in a magnetic field. The resultant electric field inside the specimen is A normal to both current and magnetic field, B in the direction of current, C antiparallel to magnetic field, D in arbitrary direction. The correct answer is normal to both current and magnetic field. In an ideal diode there is no breakdown, no current and no forward drop. A reverse voltage, B forward current, C forward voltage, D reverse current. The correct answer is reverse voltage. Silicon is not suitable for fabrication of light-emitting diodes because it is A an indirect band gap semiconductor, B direct band gap semiconductor, C wide band gap semiconductor, D narrowband gap semiconductor. The correct answer is an indirect band gap semiconductor. MOSFET can be used as A current-controlled capacitor, B voltage-controlled capacitor, C current-controlled inductor, D voltage-controlled inductor. The correct answer is voltage-controlled capacitor. Power diodes are generally A silicon diodes, B germanium diodes, C either of the above, D none of the above. The correct answer is silicon diodes. The inductance of a single-layer solenoid of 10 turns is 5H. Which one of the following is the correct value of inductance when the number of turns is 20 and the length is doubled? A 10H, B 20H, C 40H, D 5H. The correct answer is 10H. The depletion layer width of junction A decreases with light doping, B is independent of applied voltage, C is increased under reverse bias, D increases with heavy doping. The correct answer is increased under reverse bias. Forbidden energy gap in germanium at 0K is about A 10 eV, B 5 eV, C 2 eV, D 0.78 eV. The correct answer is 0.78 eV. Light-dependent resistors are A highly doped semiconductor, B intrinsic semiconductor, C lightly doped semiconductor, D either A or C. The correct answer is lightly doped semiconductor. Fermi level is the amount of energy in which A hole can have at room temperature, B an electron can have at room temperature, C. Must be given to an electron move to conduction band. D. None of the above. The correct answer is must be given to an electron move to conduction band. When avalanche breakdown occurs, covalent bonds are not affected. A. True. B. False. C. D. The correct answer is false. In p-channel JFET VGS is positive. A. True. B. False. C. D. The correct answer is true. Human body cannot sustain electric current beyond A1A, B10A, C5A, D35A. The correct answer is 35A. To produce p-type semiconductor we add A. Acceptor atoms, B. Donor atoms, C. Pentavalent impurity, D. Trivalent impurity. The correct answer is trivalent impurity. The term efficacy is defined by A. Same as efficiency, B. Measure of the ability of a device to produce a desired effect, C. Input-output, D. Efficiency to. The correct answer is measure of the ability of a device to produce a desired effect. The addition of p-type impurity to intrinsic material creates allowable energy levels. A. Slightly below conduction band, B. Slightly above conduction band, C. Slightly below valence band, D. Slightly above valence band. The correct answer is slightly above valence band. An ideal op-amp is an ideal A. Voltage-controlled current source, B. Voltage-controlled voltage source, C. Current-controlled current source, D. Current-controlled voltage source. The correct answer is voltage-controlled voltage source. Free electrons exist in A. First band, B. Second band, C. Third band, D. Conduction band. The correct answer is conduction band. Resistivity of copper is nearly A. 1.56 ohm cm, B. 3.95 ohm cm, C. 14.55 ohm cm, D. 22.05 ohm cm. The correct answer is 1.56 ohm cm. As compared to bipolar junction transistor AFET, A is less noisy, B has better thermal stability, C has higher input resistance, D. All of the above. The correct answer is all of the above. For a p-n diode, the number of minority carriers crossing the junction depends on A. Forward bias voltage, B. Potential barrier, C. Rate of thermal generation of electron-hole pairs, D. None of the above. The correct answer is rate of thermal generation of electron-hole pairs. Figure represents A. Lead, B. Varistor, C. SCR, D. Diac. The correct answer is lead.